In the dark, uncertain days of World War II, victory often depended not just on strength, but on imagination. Operation Mincemeat stands as one of history's most astonishing feats of deception, a brilliant and bizarre ruse that changed the course of the war. It was 1943. The Allies faced a daunting question. How could they invade Europe without alerting the Nazis? The obvious choice, Sicily, was also the most dangerous. To succeed, they needed to trick Hitler himself, and so British intelligence devised an extraordinary plan to plant false invasion plans on the body of a dead man and let it wash ashore where the Germans would find it. What followed was a story of espionage, creativity, and sheer audacity. A tale that would prove that in warfare, deception could be as powerful as any weapon. This is the story of Operation Mincemeat. By early 1943, World War II was finally balanced. The Allies had gained the upper hand in North Africa, but Europe was still firmly in Hitler's grip. The next logical step was to invade southern Europe. The gateway? Sicily. But logic was the problem. The Germans expected the attack. Without the element of surprise, Allied troops would be slaughtered before they reached the shore. In London, inside the secret halls of British naval intelligence, a small group of thinkers, officers, and dreamers began to imagine another way. Among them, Ewan Montagu, a barrister turned intelligence officer; Charles Cholmondeley, an eccentric RAF man with a flair for the unconventional; and Lieutenant Commander Ian Fleming, yes, the future creator of James Bond. Together they served under the 20 Committee, a secret group that controlled double agents and deception operations. Their mission? To make the Germans believe that the Allies would invade anywhere but Sicily. The concept of military deception wasn't new, but the stakes had never been higher. The success or failure of the next Allied campaign might hinge not on firepower, but on the believability of a single lie. The planning of Operation Mincemeat. The idea came from a strange source, a wartime memo known as the Trout Memo, written partly by Ian Fleming. It compared espionage to fly fishing. The trout fisher casts patiently all day, and the trout is deceived by a fly, which it mistakes for something real. One of its most bizarre suggestions? A corpse dressed as a British officer carrying false papers. What began as a passing thought soon became a serious plan. Ewan Montagu and Charles Cholmondeley developed it into Operation Mincemeat, a deception so audacious it seemed like fiction. They needed a body, someone who could convincingly pass as a drowned airman. After weeks of searching, they found him, a homeless Welshman named Glyndwr Michael, who had died after ingesting rat poison. His identity would be transformed. He would become Major William Martin of the Royal Marines, a man who never lived, but whose death would change history. Montagu's team crafted an entire life for him: a fiancée named Pam, theatre ticket stubs, keys, receipts, love letters, even a photograph, played by a real secretary from the office. Every item was deliberately smudged, folded, or aged, the kind of detail that would fool even the most skeptical investigator. The centerpiece was a set of forged letters between high-ranking officers, casually mentioning that the Allies would strike Greece and Sardinia, not Sicily. It was a masterpiece of misdirection. Subtle, believable, and deadly effective. All that remained was to deliver it to the enemy. Execution of the plan. On the night of April 30th, 1943, under the cover of darkness, the British submarine HMS Seraph surfaced off the coast of Huelva, Spain. The crew carried a canister onto the deck. Inside lay Major William Martin, lifeless, dressed in a Royal Marines uniform with his briefcase chained to his wrist. The submarine's captain read a short prayer. Then they released the body into the cold Atlantic waters. By morning, Spanish fishermen discovered him. Though Spain was neutral, many officials favored the Axis. British intelligence counted on this. They needed the documents to appear to fall into German hands, through neutral channels. When the British consul publicly demanded the return of the briefcase, it only fueled suspicion. The Spanish delayed just long enough for the Germans to secretly photograph every page. The images made their way to Berlin, straight to Admiral Karl Dönitz, and ultimately to Adolf Hitler himself. He believed every word. German divisions were rushed to Greece and Sardinia. Defences in Sicily were weakened. Montagu later recalled those anxious days in London. We waited, knowing that thousands of men's lives hung on whether or not the Germans believed a dead man. When the Allies invaded Sicily on July 9, 1943, the deception proved flawless. German forces were caught off guard. The invasion succeeded. Operation Mincemeat had worked. The man who never was had saved countless lives. The impact of Operation Mincemeat. Operation Mincemeat was more than a success. It was a turning point in the war. The false intelligence convinced Hitler that Greece, not Sicily, was the true Allied target. He ordered critical reinforcements moved across Europe, leaving Sicily vulnerable. When the invasion, Operation Husky, began, the Allies stormed the beaches with far less resistance. Within weeks, Sicily was in their hands. The victory set in motion a chain of events that led to the fall of Benito Mussolini and Italy's surrender. Operation Mincemeat didn't just win a battle, it reshaped the course of the war. The operation also revolutionized the art of deception warfare. It proved that carefully crafted lies could achieve what bombs could not. Historians estimate that tens of thousands of Allied lives were spared thanks to the deception. Winston Churchill later remarked, "In wartime, truth is so precious that she should always be attended by a bodyguard of lies." Major William Martin, the man who never was, became that bodyguard, a ghost who fooled an empire. Legacy and historical significance. Decades later, Operation Mincemeat still captivates historians, filmmakers, and storytellers alike. Ewan Montagu published his account, The Man Who Never Was, in 1953, later adapted into a film. In 2021, the story returned to the screen in Operation Mincemeat, starring Colin Firth, proving that truth really can be stranger than fiction. But beyond the intrigue lies a profound lesson about imagination in wartime. Operation Mincemeat showed that victory often depends on creativity, teamwork, and the courage to think differently. It blurred the line between strategy and storytelling, between war and theatre. The ethical questions remain. Was it right to use a human body as a prop in a deadly game of deception? For Montagu and Chumley, the answer was simple. The stakes justified the means. Today, in the Spanish town of Huelva, a grave bears the name Major William Martin. Beneath it rests Glyndor Michael, the man who never knew his role in history. The inscription reads, "Greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends." His sacrifice, unwitting as it was, helped change the world. Operation Mincemeat reminds us that wars are not only won with courage, but with creativity. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more untold stories of ingenuity, intelligence, and heroism. Because sometimes, the greatest victories begin with the boldest lies.